to continue paying kerosene subsidy. This involves an illegality which certainly must stop. If the NNPC wanted to continue or wants to continue with kerosene subsidy, there's no reason why a presidential memo or the president shouldn't have been asked to take a final decision on this issue, so that all the pros and cons are provided to him, and for him to take a decision so that the illegality can stop. At the moment, somebody is responsible for paying kerosene subsidy without authorization from the National Assembly, and so that person is likely to account for it. If you want it to continue, take presidential approval. Get it right now so that it continues. If you don't want it to continue, stop it. Let the country collapse. If we if that is true, if that will lead to the economy of the country to collapse, just petroleum subsidy. Yes. Let us see how it will happen. Kerosene subsidy, sorry. Let us see how it will happen. But certainly the illegality must stop. The Minister of Finance has said no provision has been made for kerosene subsidy, but payment for kerosene subsidy is continuing. The PPRA has indicated that it has certified payment for petroleum kerosene subsidy for a long period of time, for which payment had been made without authorization by the National Assembly, without presidential approval. I don't know whether the NNPC is taking presidential powers. I think we need to know. Thank you.
Distinguished Chair, distinguished committee, let me just make a few points based on what has been raised. First of all, I was not in office in 2009. Neither was I the minister who felt that action should be stayed at that time. I simply gave you what I thought would be the reasoning based on what has happened since then. But I would hasten to add that when a presidential order is given, either to remove subsidy or to impose, etc., it is not law until it has been gazetted. There is no gazette to that effect. At least we have not found one. That is one. Secondly, Solicitor General is here.
Solicitor General, are you here?
Can I, let me just, they can come back to that. Secondly, again, I want to stress that, there are different views on the illegality or legality of these things. The Appropriation Act has deduction of subsidy at source as a first-line charge. I still think that it is the courts of law that will determine on whether it was an illegality or is an illegality or not. And I just want to point out that in 2009, 2010, there was actually a major confusion amongst marketers as to subsidy or no subsidy for kerosene. And the marketers were actually not coming forward to take up the slack in terms of kerosene importation, which was when NNPC had to step up to the mark. So it is true that NNPC has got a very bad rap over the years. So it is always quite easy to hang issues on NNPC. At that time, NNPC had to step in to take up the slack because of the confusion. But I think I should also remind all of us that this administration did try to remove subsidies at the beginning of 2012. The intention was remove PMS and remove kerosene on the back of that. We will all recall what happened at that time. I think the people of Nigeria made their voices heard very clearly. But the same people of Nigeria can make their voices heard very clearly now in terms of the kerosene importation. It is not a problem at all. So I want to stress that it is not a problem for us to step back from it if this distinguished committee so decides.
Thank you, Excellency, distinguished chairman of this committee, distinguished members of the committee, Honorable Minister of Petroleum, CME, my colleagues, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for giving me this opportunity today to comment on these issues and to give further clarifications. That's exactly what I'm also saying. As I said, I'm happy that we gave a breakdown, and I'm also happy that we took time to discuss the outstanding domestic crude non-remittance, which is substantially the issue of subsidy. And these are all the issues. I have to make this clarification because the impression is that NNPC is sitting on money. And I also want to make Nigerians understand that this money we're talking about is not, well, I've had comments about NNPC deducting a source, NNPC, these are unrealizable flows because these monies are not realized. If there is an arbitrage on petroleum product, it doesn't come, you don't realize that money. So you cannot even retain it because you don't find it. So we're just accounting for it to say that out of these molecules of crude oil, this is so much that has come out. There is so much attrition in terms of ABC, and there is so much that is not clearly captured by the business model to give an adequate material balance for the cash flow. So what we are simply saying here is that this money is not realized because you do not recover it. It is subsidy. It is subsidy. The issues around it, I'm glad we are going to establish that. The issues around NPDC, yes, and I'm glad that the CBN governor also accepted the fact that it is not all. So it is, well, if it is not all, that means it is 6 minus X. And if it is 6 minus X, then, and if 12 minus XY is a subsidy, then the total amount we are talking about is certainly not 20. It's not 10.8. So, and that's what we are trying to establish. Whatever we call the method, whether it is forensic, whether it is legal, these are the issues. Now, permit me to just address the issue of the legality of the petroleum subsidy, the kerosene itself. Mr. Chairman, the actual position, in our own opinion, is that a directive to implement the deregulation of kerosene was not received by NNPC. Rather, the directive was communicated to the former Minister of Petroleum Resources at that time, who, of course, did not, because I've not cited any document that directed NNPC to stay action on petroleum subsidy. And we're saying on kerosene subsidy, with due respect, Mr. Chairman, Section 6, the Honorable Minister of Petroleum Resources mentioned this, of the Petroleum Act, empowers the Honorable Minister of Petroleum Resources by order published in the Federal Gazette to fix petroleum prices at which petroleum products should be sold, and Nigeria had not fully sold in Nigeria, and this gazette had not been done in accordance with the Petroleum Act, Section 6. As at today, that has not been done. So there is no legal authority to back that. Mr. Chairman, we want to also state that there was also an intervening factor when on 5th July 2011, 2011, the House of Representatives passed a resolution supporting the